Picture this: Friedrich Nietzsche, that philosophical sledgehammer of the 19th century, scrolling through modern social media. He sees tech billionaires quoting Marcus Aurelius between funding announcements. He watches as Stoicism for success dominates bestseller lists, and fitness influencers preach emotional detachment as the path to six-pack abs. His reaction: not scholarly interest or grudging respect, but absolute contempt. Stoicism is undeniably having its cultural moment, from Silicon Valley executives to celebrity podcasters, from Reddit forums to airport bookstores. Everyone seems to be carrying pocket editions of Seneca and preaching the gospel of focusing only on what you can control. This ancient Greco-Roman philosophy, with its emphasis on emotional restraint and acceptance of fate, has found an eager audience in our anxious, uncertain world. But there's one intellectual giant who would have watched this Stoic revival with thunderous disdain: Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher. He didn't just disagree with Stoicism, he considered it a profound betrayal of human nature, a philosophy of life denial disguised as wisdom, spiritual anesthesia masquerading as strength. Today we're diving into this philosophical showdown between two titans of Western thought, and the stakes couldn't be higher. They're fighting over nothing less than how we should live our lives. The cornerstone of Stoic philosophy is living according to nature, harmonizing with what they perceived as the universe's rational design. For the Stoics, the cosmos operates according to divine reason, a perfectly ordered system where everything unfolds according to rational principles. This is why Marcus Aurelius could write in his Meditations that whatever happens to us is part of a greater plan, and our task is simply to accept it with grace. Nietzsche demolishes this premise with characteristic ferocity. In Beyond Good and Evil, he writes, "You desire to live according to nature, O you noble Stoics, what deceptive words these are. Imagine a being like nature, wasteful beyond measure, indifferent beyond measure, without purpose and consideration, without mercy and justice. Imagine indifference itself as a power. How could you live according to this indifference? For the natural world isn't an ordered system but an amoral, chaotic force, completely indifferent to human concepts of meaning or justice. Just look around: tsunamis don't spare children, cancer doesn't avoid the virtuous, and ecosystems thrive on constant brutal competition. Nature isn't rational or kind, it's powerful, creative, destructive, and utterly indifferent to our moral categories." Nietzsche accuses Stoics of profound intellectual dishonesty. They project their moral ideals onto the universe, then claim to derive those same ideals from nature's example. Your pride wants to impose your morality, your ideal, on nature and incorporate them in her, he charges. The Stoic contemplating the ordered cosmos is less like a scientist discovering natural laws and more like a child seeing faces in the clouds, finding only what they already put there. Stoicism's approach to emotions, the pursuit of apatheia and ataraxia, which is also known as freedom from disruptive passions and tranquility, represents for Nietzsche not psychological maturity, but a profound diminishment of human potential. In The Gay Science, he offers a visceral metaphor. The Stoic exercises himself in swallowing stones and worms, glass shards and scorpions, and not feeling any disgust. His stomach is supposed to become indifferent in the end to everything that the accidents of existence might pour into it. This image captures Nietzsche's central objection. Stoic emotional discipline isn't self-mastery, but self-mutilation, deliberately numbing oneself to life's full spectrum. Think about it: is a person who feels nothing at the loss of a loved one stronger than someone who grieves deeply? Is someone who can't be moved by beauty, passion, or even righteous anger truly living a full human life? Stoicism for Nietzsche is philosophical Botox, dulling life's expressions while killing its vitality. The Stoics' pursuit of emotional safety is the philosophy of a caged animal, life reduced to a dull, tame existence under the illusion of strength. consider how we approach difficult emotions today. When we feel anxiety, we're often told to just breathe or focus on what you can control, classic Stoic advice. But what if that anxiety is pointing to something important we need to address? What if our anger carries wisdom about injustice that deserves expression? The Stoic doesn't transcend suffering, he merely numbs himself to it, like a patient who chooses permanent anesthesia over the risky vitality of feeling alive. Behind this quest for invulnerability, detects not strength, but fear, specifically, fear of being deeply affected by life's unpredictability. True power lies not in remaining unmoved, but in having the courage to be moved deeply and still affirm existence. Is tranquility strength, or is it surrender to fear? Modern Stoics would object to this characterization. Philosopher Massimo Pigui argues that apatheia isn't emotional numbness but clarity, the ability to see situations without distortion. Donald Robertson contends that Stoicism is fundamentally proactive, not passive acceptance, but strategic focus on what matters. The modern Stoic would say, we don't suppress emotions but transform them, we don't resign ourselves to fate, we engage strategically with reality. We don't counsel indifference to injustice, but pragmatic action. After all, didn't Marcus Aurelius actively fulfill his duties as emperor rather than merely accepting his fate? Nevertheless, would remain deeply skeptical. While Stoics emphasize virtuous action, their fundamental premise, that virtue alone is sufficient for happiness, subtly undermines the creative tension necessary for transformation. When virtue becomes its own reward, doesn't this discourage the risky, passionate engagement that drives revolutionary change? Consider climate activism. A strict Stoic might focus solely on personal virtue, reducing their carbon footprint, living simply, while accepting that the global climate crisis is largely beyond their control. A Nietzschean approach might embrace the creative anger that fuels movement building, the passionate commitment to transforming what seems unchangeable. Can a philosophy that makes peace with circumstances ever truly challenge the status quo? The Stoic sage, that paragon of perfect rationality and virtue, immune to fortune's blows, represents for N not an aspirational ideal, but a revealing fantasy. Even the Stoics acknowledged this figure was more theoretical than actual, a north star by which to navigate rather than a destination to reach. I mistrust all systematizer and avoid them. Nietzsche declares, the will to a system is a lack of integrity. The Stoic philosophical structure attempts to impose conceptual order on the messy reality of human experience. Nietzsche would see the Stoic sage not as an ideal but as a corpse, too disciplined to realize it has already died, a philosophical taxidermy project that preserves the form of human greatness while draining it of all vital fluids. The sage's bloodless perfection represents not humanity's highest achievement, but its ultimate betrayal. The sage's supposed achievement of perfect tranquility through perfect rationality fundamentally misunderstands what makes us human, our contradictions, our passions, our capacity for both creation and destruction. What is the seal of liberation? Nietzsche asks, no longer being ashamed in front of oneself. Where Stoicism seeks freedom through rational control over the self, Nietzsche finds liberation in honest self-acceptance, embracing even those aspects of ourselves that resist rational mastery. What makes this critique particularly devastating is that it undermines Stoicism not just as incorrect, but as psychologically impossible. The Stoic conception of human nature resembles an architectural blueprint that ignores the actual materials available for construction. Nietzsche, alternative, the will to power, and the Übermensch. Where Stoicism offers self-restraint, Nietzsche champions self-expansion. His concept of will to power isn't about dominating others, but about the fundamental drive behind all life, the impulse toward growth, complexity, and self-overcoming. While Stoics seek to minimize suffering through acceptance, Nietzsche sees suffering as transformative fuel for human greatness. Think about it this way: would you rather be a stone unmoved by the storm, or the storm itself shaping the landscape with your force? The Stoic aims to be the still ocean. Nietzsche urges you to be the crashing wave. The Übermensch, often translated as overman or superman, embodies this philosophy in action. Unlike the Stoic sage, who achieves perfection through rational detachment, the Übermensch creates meaning through passionate engagement, transforming suffering into self-mastery by shaping their own values instead of inheriting them, embracing contradiction as strength rather than weakness, and affirming life without metaphysical consolations. They craft a deeper, self-determined existence. Consider artists who channel personal trauma into powerful creative work, entrepreneurs who fail repeatedly before revolutionizing an industry, or activists who transform their anger at injustice into world-changing movements. These aren't people who practiced Stoic detachment from their circumstances. They're individuals who fully embrace their experiences, including suffering, and transform them into something meaningful. Nietzsche, flourishing doesn't promise tranquility, but vitality, a life characterized by intensity, creative power, and joyful wisdom. Like a bow drawn taut, human greatness emerges precisely from opposing forces held in productive tension, rather than resolved into artificial harmony. Where the Stoic sees the tempest of human passion as something to be calmed, Nietzsche sees it as energy to be harnessed. The Stoic builds walls against life's storms. Nietzsche builds windmills, transforming resistance into power. One philosophy seeks immunity from life's chaos, the other seeks to ride it like a dangerous and magnificent beast. So would you rather be a tranquil pond, or a powerful river carving its own path? Stoicism's emphasis on personal virtue, independent of external conditions, carries an inherently conservative impulse. By treating poverty, oppression, or injustice as preferred indifference that do not hinder true fulfillment. Stoicism raises difficult questions. If happiness is possible, even under extreme hardship, why challenge the systems that create suffering? If a slave can achieve eudaimonia while remaining enslaved, does this not implicitly validate existing power structures? This dynamic plays out in modern workplaces where corporate Stoicism subtly reinforces compliance. Many companies promote Stoic principles through mindfulness programs, radical acceptance, and the mantra of controlling what you can control, all while maintaining exploitative practices. Tech firms that encourage resilience among overworked employees, yet resist meaningful structural change, use Stoicism as a tool, not for empowerment, but for endurance. By teaching workers to adapt rather than organize, Stoicism becomes a philosophy of survival within an unjust system, rather than a means of transforming it. Just look at Amazon, where warehouse workers face grueling conditions while the company promotes wellness initiatives that teach employees to manage their stress rather than addressing its root causes. Or consider how resilience training in schools often focuses on helping children adapt to broken educational systems rather than fixing the systems themselves. A similar pattern emerges in politics. Figures like Seneca counseled emperors on virtue and moderation, yet rarely questioned the legitimacy of empire itself. Even as he advised Nero to rule justly, he remained complicit in a fundamentally unjust system. Stoicism refines individual character, but stops short of imagining radical structural change, focusing on personal integrity within the status quo, rather than challenging the foundations of power. Nietzsche, in contrast, refuses to accept inherited systems as immutable. When he proclaimed, "I am dynamite," it was not empty bravado but a commitment to creative destruction. Where Stoicism offers peace within the system, Nietzsche calls for its annihilation. He demands that we break from inherited constraints, burn away what is lifeless, and create something truer to the chaotic vitality of existence. One of N's most penetrating insights is that philosophies are never merely abstract intellectual positions, but expressions of psychological types. In Beyond Good and Evil, he writes, "Gradually it has become clear to me what every great philosophy has been, a confession on the part of its author and a kind of involuntary and unconscious memoir." Applied to Stoicism, this perspective reveals how the philosophy might appeal particularly to individuals with specific psychological dispositions, those who find uncertainty intolerable, who seek clear principles for navigating complexity. This doesn't invalidate Stoicism, but contextualizes it as one possible response to human vulnerability, rather than universal wisdom. Nietzsche's own philosophy similarly appeals to different psychological types, those who experience restriction more painfully than uncertainty, who find established systems stifling. Each philosophy speaks to different existential fears. Stoicism addresses the fear of being overwhelmed by external forces and internal passions, while Nen addresses the fear of diminishment through excessive control and resignation. Each philosophical system offers medicine for different diseases of the soul. Think about your own temperament. Do you feel more threatened by chaos or by constraint? Does the thought of surrendering control terrify you, or does the prospect of rigid self-discipline feel like a kind of death? Your answer might reveal which philosophical approach naturally speaks to your psychological needs. The Stoic and the Nean don't just think differently, they experience the world differently, finding different aspects of existence painful or exhilarating. The most fascinating tension between N and Stoicism emerges in their seemingly parallel concepts of fate acceptance. N's amor fati, love of fate, meaning embracing your life so completely you wouldn't change a single moment of pain or joy, initially appears strikingly similar to Epictetus's counsel to wish the things which happen to be as they are. Yet this similarity conceals a profound philosophical gulf. The Stoic accepts fate because it flows from a providential cosmic order, ultimately rational, ultimately good. This acceptance rests on metaphysical comfort. What happens must happen for the best within divine reason's plan. N's love of fate acknowledges no such cosmic reassurance. His amor fati represents not resignation to a rational order, but defiant affirmation despite the absence of order, a creative act that transforms necessity into chosen destiny. My formula for greatness in a human being, In writes, is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely bear what is necessary, but love it. This distinction reveals the essential difference between Stoic resignation and Nean affirmation. Where the Stoic seeks peace through acceptance of cosmic design, In creates meaning through the artistic transmutation of brute necessity. Consider how differently these philosophies approach personal tragedy. The Stoic finds solace in the belief that even terrible events serve some rational purpose within the cosmic order. When a loved one dies, the Stoic reminds himself that death is natural, unavoidable, and part of a larger plan he cannot fully comprehend but must accept. In offers no such comfort. When tragedy strikes, there is no cosmic purpose to discover. Instead, he proposes something more radical, the creative transformation of suffering itself, taking the raw material of one's fate and reimagining it as meaningful, not because it was meant to be, but because one wills it to become meaningful. The artist who channels grief into a powerful work isn't accepting fate as the Stoic would, they're transforming it through creative will. Our contemporary Stoic revival, with its emphasis on emotional regulation, acceptance of uncontrollables, and focus on personal virtue, would likely strike N as symptomatic of our cultural moment, an era where self-optimization replaces self-creation, where emotional management substitutes for passionate engagement. What is the greatest thing you can experience? In asks, In thus spoke Zarathustra. It is the hour of great contempt, the hour in which even your happiness becomes loathsome to you, and so also your reason and virtue. True philosophical growth begins not with maxims for contentment, but with profound dissatisfaction. Look at how Stoicism is marketed today, as a productivity hack, a stress management technique, a way to become a more efficient employee or entrepreneur. The philosophy has been stripped of its deeper ethical dimensions and repurposed as a psychological tool for functioning better within existing systems rather than questioning or transforming them. In a world facing unprecedented challenges, technological transformation, democratic fragility, ecological crises, is calm acceptance our highest virtue, or might we need the creative disruption championed? The Stoic division between what we can and cannot control might appear prudent, but doesn't meaningful change often begin precisely by refusing to accept supposed limits on what humans can transform? The civil rights movement, feminist revolution, and environmental activism all began with individuals rejecting established boundaries between the controllable and uncontrollable. Had they adopted strict Stoic principles, accept the social conditions of their time as externals beyond their control, would these transformative movements ever have emerged? When Martin Luther King Jr. declared, "I have a dream," was he practicing Stoic acceptance of reality, or Nietzschean creation of a new reality? The philosophies of Stoicism and Nietzschean thought both address life's fundamental uncertainty, but differ in their aims. Understanding when to apply each requires recognizing the distinct challenges life presents. Stoicism serves best in moments of acute crisis, providing immediate emotional stability. When your flight is cancelled and raging won't help, Stoic principles offer practical wisdom. It offers clarity and objectivity in situations that demand effective action, and helps navigate circumstances that truly cannot be changed, like terminal illness or natural disasters. When emotional restraint prevents harm, Stoicism becomes a necessary anchor. Nietzschean thought, in contrast, is vital when stagnation threatens growth. It thrives in moments requiring creative reinvention, when challenging unjust systems demands passionate commitment, and during transformative periods that call for embracing uncertainty rather than resisting it. When confronting systemic racism or environmental destruction, Nietzschean creative passion may drive more meaningful change than Stoic acceptance. Moving between these approaches is not arbitrary, but requires philosophical discernment, the wisdom to recognize which mode a situation demands. The true skill lies in knowing when to build Stoic fortresses and when to embrace Nietzschean dynamism. This oscillation between restraint and expression, acceptance and creation, mirrors the natural rhythms of life itself. Wisdom emerges not from rigid adherence to either philosophy, but from the ability to shift fluidly between them, containing multitudes, as Walt Whitman might say. Perhaps N's critique serves not to invalidate Stoicism, but to contextualize it, to reveal it as one possible response to human vulnerability, rather than the universal wisdom it sometimes presents itself as. As N himself acknowledged, there are many kinds of eyes, and consequently there are many kinds of truths, and consequently there is no truth. The question isn't which philosophy is universally correct, but which illuminates your particular path at this particular moment. So in facing life's challenges, ask not only what would a Stoic do, but also what would N do, and recognize that the answer that serves life today may differ from tomorrow's truth. Share this video with someone who thinks Stoicism is the answer to everything, or with a friend who might benefit from hearing about Nick's passionate alternative. Life is too complex for one-size-fits-all philosophies, and the conversation between these two approaches might just help you navigate your own path with greater wisdom and vitality.